Do you have a personal relationship with him? If not, how do you know that he is honest? Well, well, for several reasons. No, I don't have a personal relationship with Trump. I never even watched The Apprentice. The most I know about Trump is when I would see him occasionally back in the day on Fox News when he would be giving commentary. That's it. But the way I knew is because, and I've mentioned it many times on this channel, but there was a few ways that personally I knew, not him, but knew what he was doing and told me he was an honest man. I mean, I did vote for him. There was no way I was voting for Hillary. I mean, she's always been nothing but a liar. But that said, I saw how his policies were playing out, like in front of me, literally, because when he wrote the executive orders for eradicating trafficking and everything he was doing in that area. He had a special department strictly in the White House just to deal with trafficking. And yet, what ended up happening during his presidency, I was working in the ER as a psych nurse, as I've mentioned. I know people have heard me say this a million times, but just quickly here. Yeah, and there were women coming in fresh out of trafficking because of this safe house that was in my county, that was there because of funding he had put towards part of what his executive order was to help these young women, because that's who's trafficked. That's the #1 group that's trafficked. People forget that. They think it's children. No, children are #2, but the #1 is young women. And that's who I took care of. I never took care of any children. But they're the group that's trafficked the most, is young women. And so when these women were coming in regularly, and they hadn't before, I'd never seen this in my career. They were coming in regularly because of this house in my county. Naturally, they would, you know, have these flashbacks and traumas or suicidal thoughts. And so the director of this home or her staff, they would bring these women in. This was a very loving home. It was faith-based, which it was actually in the executive, I think it was in the executive order of Trump's, that these basically these homes to help these women heal and transition so that they can go back into their family, back into society. Because if they've just been years in trafficking, that's the only life they know, is being bought and sold over and over again. So when they started coming in, and that's never happened in my career, I started looking into it, and that's when I found out about Trump and this being his #1 goal. This was his #1 priority. It just was rarely talked about. And then when I read the executive orders, I'm like, about the safe house, I'm like, I'm seeing this play out. Like, usually we only see the negative impacts of what the presidents do. You know, at the level of me, I'm just an average, ordinary citizen. But this, I'm seeing that, no, this is actually, I'm seeing how his policies are playing out in front of me. But it went further than that, because I also, when I was at this same hospital, we had this week-long get rid of waste thing. It was like getting rid of waste on the unit, and there was this contractor that came in. He would go all over the country, and he was with us for a week. And I remember at the end of the week, I had asked him, where are you off to next? And he said, I'm going to Washington, D.C. The Trump administration has asked me to come on board to help clean up the VAs. So I'm like, well, that's good too. You know, so Trump said he was going to do something about the VAs and how they're treated and cleaning them up. So I'm seeing now, you know, this guy had no reason to lie to me. And then on top of it, then with all the nightmare of COVID, I mean, that's really when everything just began to crumble and things fell into place, because the nursing associations, the nursing unions, the hospitals, they all hated Trump. They went out of their way to write every nasty thing they could. And I thought, this is way overboard. But then that was at the same time, you know, in the middle of COVID, that all the hospitals decided to join together and get on their, let's make systemic racism the public health crisis right in the middle of COVID. All very, you know, just designed. And So there was that, but then the week of lockdowns, the hospital I worked at put in these blacklisted Chinese thermal cameras. They were basically to take our temperature, but they shut all the entrances we could come in, and we all had to be herded in one entrance. These went in all Northwestern hospitals, okay? And Trump had blacklisted 7 Chinese telecom companies because of national security risks and human rights abuses against the Uyghurs in China. They're a small Muslim population. They use these type cameras to monitor them. They can track their facial recognition. That's the problem with them. They can do facial recognition on you even in a mask. So I had gotten the serial numbers off the back of these cameras, took pictures of them, and I spent months, I've talked about this, I spent months and months contacting the White House, contacting DOJ, calling FBI, emailing media, all sorts of media, sending them the pictures, showing them the serial number that went back to one of the Chinese telecom companies that Trump had blacklisted. So I'm like, this is really concerning that my employer has blacklisted cameras in here. How did they get around this? Because the concern is the facial recognition, and they can get facial recognition even in a mask. And it was very diabolical because the hospital put them in, the minute it's like they knew lockdowns were coming because they had them all ready to go. And then a month later, and no other hospital I've been to has these cameras. They all just used the regular temperature. But Northwestern, no, they put them in all of their hospitals. Not only did they put them in the employee entrances, but a month after that, they put them in the lobbies too. So once visitors started coming back, they'd pick you up too. So I was very concerned about that because they were blacklisted for security reasons. So I was shocked that the FBI, the DOJ, none of these organizations that supposedly protect the country cared about this, because I sent the serial numbers. The serial numbers went back to Dua, which was one of the 7 companies Trump had blacklisted. The only people that got back to me was the Trump administration. It was somebody from the Trump administration. I mean, not Trump, but somebody from his administration. They left me a voicemail message. They asked me to watch for their phone call in the next week. And there's other people that have listened to it, so I still have it. I'm not making it up. They didn't call me back, though. But the mere fact that they got back to me and nobody else did told me what his administration was about. And it was about the American people and doing the right thing. So I don't need any more. That's plenty of evidence. That should be plenty of evidence to tell anybody with a brain and common sense that that is an honest man.